with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We got 8 games here on a Wednesday. If you are playing over on DraftKings, if you're playing over on FanDuel, you have 6 games here on this evening as they decided to cut out the 9:30 and 10 p.m. games over on FanDuel, which is quite unfortunate because there's some players over there that are good to quite good. What we'd say that would have been part of this slate, but thankfully we are playing over on DraftKings here this evening, so we do have those late games. We have Wembayama, we have DeJounte Murray and the Hawks. Should be a good one overall here, James. Still waiting on some news for today. Playbook is out and live for everybody. That will be updated again after today's show with any news and additional analysis. How are we feeling about things today, man?
Feel pretty good. Feel better that I play in DraftKings and not FanDuel.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you 100% right there. Looking at tonight's slate, like what's some of the top stories that you're thinking about here? We heard that Terry Rozier is eligible to make his debut for the Miami Heat this evening. It'll be quite interesting to see how he impacts their rotation. We have Cade Cunningham expected to play today for the Detroit Pistons. I haven't seen. Maybe you have.
He was downgraded to question.
There you go. Well, then we'll see. We'll see if he's in or out. If he's in, we'll see what kind of minutes restriction would be imposed upon him. If he's out, Jaden Ivey, obviously a full go here in this Charlotte Hornets matchup. What else are you looking at here today, man?
Mike Conley didn't go through shit around. We saw how much of a mess they were without him. To close that game, I do think Mike Conley would have made a difference. Luke Kennard was downgraded to questionable today, so just more Memphis guys hitting the injury report. We've seen Nick Richards upgraded to probable. He's a very good value if he's starting. Trey Jones unable to go through shit around. What would the Spurs starting lineup look like without Trey Jones? Would they go back to Sohan at the starting lineup? Would they go to Malachi Branham with the Sohan lineup? Would they just use Blake Wesley? All things that we'll find answers to. And obviously, big news is Luka and Kyrie. The Kyrie thing is he said he's going to play through. Yeah. And Luka's injury is new. It's not the same injury that he's been dealing with. This is a back injury because he's been carrying the team. He's been put on the injury report. I would say both play, considering that's only a 2-point spread. But remains to be seen if one or the other sit. But my guess would be both.
Yeah, sure. What's up, Stacked, IC3, and Albert, all in the chat. If you guys have any questions for today's show, feel free to throw them in there. You want to throw some commentary, James and I are happy to go back and forth with you on today's slate as well. When taking a look at some of the top matchups, totals, and game spreads, Charlotte, Detroit is a 3-point home favorite today for Detroit Pistons. It's a 231.5 game total. Minnesota, Washington, 229 total there. Washington, 11-point home underdog. Memphis, Miami, 215 total there. Miami, 11-point home favorite. Portland, Houston, a 10.5-point home favorite to 220.5 total in that one. Cleveland versus Milwaukee. Milwaukee giving 7 at home, 237.5 game total. Kind of surprising that Cleveland's getting 7, given the way these two teams have been playing lately. Phoenix, Dallas getting 2 at home, 242 total there. Then if you're on DraftKings, you got the OKC San Antonio matchup, 242 game total there. San Antonio is getting 8 at home. And Atlanta Golden State, 235.5 game total. Golden State given 6.5.
Yeah, definitely interesting to see Cleveland. Only a 7-point dog, 6.5 on BetMGM. There's some sketchy stuff, I think, potentially to happen in Portland. They listed basically nobody on the injury report today, and that they played heavy minutes last night. And there was obviously the weird ending to that game that ended in a protest due to the referees right in front of Malcolm Brogdon and Chauncey Billups both calling timeouts, not being granted a timeout. I wouldn't be surprised if we got late news from Portland, but right now they have nobody of significance or no one that we didn't know. So that line that's at 10.5 don't think that's the end of it. So if you can get 10.5 right now in that Houston game, I think you jump on it. Miami, the line moved with the news that Terry Rozier was ruled in. Detroit holding firm all day does lead you to believe that Cade Cunningham plays, but also there was the downgrade midday, so that is something of note. So that's everything I got on
Yeah, for sure. It was kind of interesting. It made the midday downgrade had a little bit to do with it. I was looking at some rostership where like Monty Morris was getting a little bit of love, and I was like, what is that about? Right? Like
the return.
And so I was a little confused. Maybe we'll see what happens. Stacks and you're saying like Cleveland +7. So we were talking about Cleveland's been like blowing teams out, including Milwaukee, and they're getting 7 points. Like that's a suspicious line if I've seen one. We'll pay attention to it as the night moves on. But let's get into our top plays. We go position by position here. If you haven't already liked today's show, commented, subscribed, please do so. Hit the button. It helps us out a ton here on the Fantasy Time YouTube channel. Allows us to do a lot more for you guys when it comes to content as well. So help grow the channel. Hit that like button. Comment down here. Subscribe. We go live every day, 5 o'clock Eastern time, pretty much all year round. James and I do the NBA. We do the MLB live show. So there's never a time you don't see our faces on this screen here on the Fantasy Time YouTube channel. Point guard position, Luka Doncic is 11-3, SGA at 10-1, Donnie Mitch 97, LaMelo Ball 96, Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving round out your 9K range. LaMelo Ball obviously is the cover of today's playbook. We talked about his usage rates without Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward on the floor. A great price for him there, but the way Luka Doncic has been performing those last 2 games, if he's good to go here, close spread, high total here between Phoenix and Dallas. There's a few guys on the slate that can do what he can do.
Click the splits tab, John.
Is that okay?
just check that real quick.
Is this one okay? 97.5? Is that all right?
I just wanted you to click it real quick. Yeah, like Kyrie obviously wasn't in that game, right, but we've seen this matchup between him and Devin Booker dating back to the postseason. This was the infamous free throw line where Luka did the little like stare up at Devin Booker, and we have that meme living forever. And they came back from 3-1, and DeAndre was doing bench presses in the locker room, and they lost that series and whatnot. But Luka there's definitely the teams that Luka gets up for. Few are like Phoenix. Phoenix and the Clippers are the 1 and 2 at that on that tier. I'm a little worried. Like Kyrie has the sprain, right? It's on his shooting hand.
Yeah,
that's a little concerning, right? Like just like he's gonna be playing through a sprain on his thumb. Like only Dame, when you watch Dame, he shoots with his palm, which is the weirdest shot of all time. But like everyone else, like there's like a lot of thumb usage and like a lot of jump shots. So if Kyrie's not comfortable or defers to Luka, I mean, this could be an absolute monster game. I would say the only thing about getting to anybody, Luka, Giannis, SGA, is how are you comfortable with the value? Because value is disgusting on today's slate. Yes. And that we don't know what's going to open up from here. But there's not a lot of like definitive value. Like yesterday we had Lakers value because we knew LeBron was out early.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a lot different than today. So if you're comfortable with using Memphis value or Charlotte value or potentially some Cleveland guys, if Karis LeVert's ruled out, like more power to you. It's just, or if Mike Conley's ruled out, like obviously the pivot to NAW. Yeah. I mean, so like there is potential value, but as it currently stands, Luka, SGA, I feel kind of similar about like they both could go for 80 tonight and be like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why you're in a better spot actually on DraftKings tonight, because you have that Atlanta game and some of the pricing on those guys makes it a bit easier to build, and probably because of the lack of value, there's a reason why you see, Sadiq Bey and Oni there with some decent ownership here tonight, because there aren't that many guys in that low 5K, 4K range that you're comfortable putting in your lineup. It's another reason why also John Conchar, once again, is a very highly rostered player. The blocks were there last game. Great. Can't always rely on that. But he's 4K with point guard eligibility. 40% of the field is playing John Conchar again here tonight.
Yeah. I'm obviously just like indifferent about Contra in general, like the player. I'm not saying he's not like someone who fills up. He's a very good rebounder. We've seen that for a couple of years now. Like when he's extended, he's a really good rebounding guard. He's obviously good enough. I think there's also a case to be made for Contra to be on the ball more if Luke Kennard's ruled out, right? Because Luke Kennard with the downgrade is playing point guard, and Luke Kennard's already playing out of position. Now you get Contra. I think if Kennard is ruled out, like that obviously opens up a little more of a window for Jacob Gilliard, who's $3,400 and kind of falling out of the rotation, but still like hanging on to some type of role. So yeah, I mean, there's if you're getting to those guys, Contra is definitely a pairing with those guys at $4,000. If you get the last two games, you're perfectly fine with the Contra play.
We're getting some Houston news here. Jabari Smith now questionable. Jayshawn Tate now questionable for this evening.
Ooh.
Talk about maybe some value that opens up.
Yeah, and Jalen Green did go through shoot around today, but is also questionable. Yep. So
Cam Whitmore may start. Eamon Thompson may find his way into the lineup, more already in the lineup, but like more of some rotation minutes. So there's a couple 4K plays that could find some extra run here this evening.
Yeah, I mean they started both those guys, Whitmore, and they started Whitmore at the 4. So I would assume you would just do that same thing. You start Whitmore at the 4. If Jaytron Tate's out, that solidifies the Eamon Thompson minutes for sure, like regardless if Jalen Green's in or out. But if Jalen Green's out, all systems go on all things.
Yeah, against Portland here tonight.
No question. Yeah, no question.
Yep, 100%. So we'll see if more news comes in through. But those are two guys that are getting some downgrades here in the middle of the day. Again, not to talk extensively about this top tier. We know what Luke is certainly capable of doing. He is expensive. We know what SGA certainly capable of doing at 10-1 here against San Antonio. But I love the show just mentioning LaMelo Ball. I'm just going to keep finding myself back to LaMelo Ball. He's a 10K plus player. We've been talking about this since he's come back from his injury. They've priced him down. The price is dropping for no apparent reason. Now it's kind of on its way back up. More than comfortable with him playing here. And as I said on the show this morning, without Terry Rozier, without Gordon and Hayward in the lineup this year, he has the elite usage rate numbers. 1.6 fantasy points per minute. It's like a 38% usage rate. Few guys in the NBA hit those marks. And those that do are 11K and up usually on these slates. So great matchup against Detroit, especially if no Kate Cunningham is there. Just the type of talent that he is. Love LaMelo Ball here tonight.
Yeah, it's a pace-up spot too. In the month of January, Detroit is 6th in pace, and Charlotte is 24th in pace. Like, it's definitely a little interesting to see his ownership percentages come in where it is because he's being kind of ignored on DraftKings tonight. So I do like LaMelo Ball quite a bit.
Not to take away from what Donnie Mitchell is able to do here. 58 fantasy points in just 30 minutes a night against Milwaukee here because they blew him out last time. I think it was a competitive game in that first one. Yeah, they lost. He played 36 minutes, but had 61. And then he had 55 in 26 minutes. Damian Lillard doesn't automatically gain defensive abilities just because they change a head coach here. Maybe there's a change in defensive philosophy, but Donnie Mitch can shoot from the outside, or he can get to the rim and attack you there too. He's not limited to how he can beat you. Both of these guys, him and Ball, obviously in great spots. And it's suspect that line, man. Like, I don't know. They just beat them by 40. And now they're getting 7. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And the thing about Milwaukee, it's not going to be Dame. It's going to be Malik Beasley. And I don't know if that's better or worse because Malik Beasley is not a good on-ball defender. He does not have the quickness to stay with Donovan Mitchell. So, I mean, it's an elite matchup any way you cook this. I'm looking at the 7 points and I'm just running with them because Cleveland has a top 6 offense over the last 15 games. They're 12-3. That's the best record in the NBA over that span. And this is all without Garland and Evan Mobley. Like, it's all about Donovan Mitchell for this Cleveland team tonight. I like him a little bit more if Karis LeVert's out as well. We don't have that official status yet. He's still listed questionable. So I love Point Donnie. We've said this for years, John. Like Donovan Mitchell by himself has been a fantasy point per minute gold mine, whether you've jinxed him or not.
Dude, this year I haven't even really been able to jinx
you
him,
have not.
right? Like
I know because they're all in just blowouts. Like every game they're in freaking blowouts. And so if you land on either of those guys, more like great. I'm also like really curious how DeJounte Murray's ownership stacks up against them by the end of the night, because I think he's going to be like the chalk monster, and that's what's slated to happen right now. For a good reason. 8,400 coming off 61 fantasy points in his last game. It's going to be hard to get away from DeJounte, but you could probably pair him with any one of those guys. I was going to say, the dual
positional eligibility certainly makes that easier. What are your thoughts? Again, no, we'll have updated rostership as it comes through here, but, you know, no one's playing Sam Merrill. No one's really playing Max Strus here tonight. I mean, I understand right now some of that has to do with Karis LeVert not officially, being ruled out. But when we're talking about slate with some limited value, Merrill 53, Strus is even cheaper at 51. You would have thought, more people would be in on them here tonight.
I mean, I think it's directly correlated to the LeVert news, because it's just how many people are plugging. Like Merrill was playing low 20s minutes with Karis LeVert. Like Karis LeVert's minutes limit was restricted or came off the restriction, and then LeVert played like 35 minutes and Merrill played 20 in the Chicago game. Strus also has ceded time to Sam Merrill, but he hasn't needed to be extended with this little knee injury that he's been like dealing with. They haven't needed him to be extended because they're blowing everybody out. So I like the Strus play. I like the Merrill play, but it is really tied to Karis LeVert being out for me, because we just 5,300 for Merrill. Needs to obviously make his shots, and he can. I mean, shooting 48% from three over his last 4 games, 43% on the year. He's shooting better from three than he is from two, or from the field in general. And we know what Strus can do. That's what he was signed to do. Even
he's struggling this year. I was surprised to see the
down here. He's been hurt so much this year. It's just like, which I think is not a bad thing for him right now. Like getting all this like blowout rest, because he has been so banged up. But we've seen in competitive games, this is slated to be a competitive game on the road in Milwaukee against a fully healthy Milwaukee team. So I think it's really just tied to that Karis LeVert.
Mid-tier guys, you mentioned DeJounte Murray. I agree with you. I would imagine at some point when these updates come through, the rostership on him jumps a bit here. Obviously, the Cade news is something to monitor at $7,800. I don't know what to do with the Miami play here. With Terry Rozier now in. I mean, it feels that a guy with that kind of usage rate have to assume it impacts Tyler Hero a bit at $7,600 and Butler Bam. So I'm gonna wait and see. And we may not even get clarity because this is a matchup against Memphis. This game might just be over anyways. Fred VanVleet, though, at 74. Simons at 71. Beal, 7K. We did just get the Monty Morris news. I wonder if we're going to start getting some additional Detroit news here shortly. But Ivy at 69. I really like Vassell tonight at 68. Trey Jones didn't go through the shoot around this morning, so could see him in a increased point guard role tonight. What are your thoughts on this mid-tier?
I don't have too much interest. DeJounte, obviously, the good thing, you can play him wherever. Great spot. The Golden State Warriors have been the worst defensive team in the NBA in the month of January. So really good spot for Atlanta. No thanks on just kind of wait and see on Tyler Hero and the rest of their team, because again, we don't know what Rozier's going to do. Is he going to revert back to that 3-and-D type where he was in Boston?
I think once you go Scary Terry, you don't go back from Scary Terry, right?
Sure.
He's evolved, it's like a Pokemon.
He has, but he can't be another Tyler Hero, because Tyler Hero already can't defend, right? You can't have two Tyler Heroes on the floor.
Well, he can. Well, the thing is, obviously Rozier can still defend, but I don't think he's going to all of a sudden just cede shot attempts either. I think I think he's going to shoot. I think he's there to be an offensive point guard that can also play more defense than they were getting out of Kyle Lowry, right? Like, so it's what they thought. It's what they probably hoped they were getting from Kyle Lowry, the 5 Kyle Lowry versions ago, right? Because we saw Rozier, and maybe this even facilitated this move a little bit more. Rozier wasn't a shooting guard when LaMelo Ball was out. He was giving you 7-8 assists.
Yeah.
So maybe they looked at Terry Rozier and was like, wait a minute, Cade Cunningham officially out tonight. So there you go on that one, midday downgrade. Maybe they looked at Rozier's like, all right, if he needs to play a point guard to facilitate the offense, like he can be that guy and run the show for us here. Doesn't have to be a mimic of Tyler Hero who's going to take 20 shots. It allows probably more rest days for Jimmy Butler, honestly, to have Terry Rozier. They were able to play 40 minutes a night, right? So, super curious to see how all that plays out for sure. Jaden Ivey, I think, jumps right now back into that conversation, though, with Cade Cunningham being out tonight. Minutes are legit. Matchups obviously great here. Price tag at $6,900. He's certainly been paying that off lately. Just to spin back quickly to the day's price point. Maybe my favorite outside of Murray in that tier B range.
Yes, you're saying Ivy is now?
Yes.
Agreed. Totally. I was just looking at the comments from Monty Morris about Monty Williams about Monty Morris. And he said he's not going to play a lot of minutes. I know the report said available to play limited minutes, but it hit Monty Williams' official word was like not going to play a lot. So I was just like trying to think through what Detroit's
how many minutes was Killian Hayes playing? Did they just give him to Monty?
Right. That could
take Sasser's minutes away. It can't come from Alec Burks. Do not do that.
It's not coming from, so they're gonna get Monty Morris minutes because I think they want to trade Monty Morris. I think Monty Morris is going to be like a really solid backup point guard for somebody who needs a backup point guard. The Knicks, right? Like the Knicks obviously need something in the guard room. So
I was trying to think of the guard that always got traded. Is it Teague? Did Teague always get traded? Or
Jeff Teague? He was on a couple teams. He played for Atlanta. He played for Boston. He played in Indiana. He played.
Yeah, it felt like every year there was like a guard that was just finding his way, like roaming around different. It'll come to me. I don't think it was Jeff Teague, but the name will definitely come to me at some point through this through this stream here. All right, where else are we going at point guard here tonight?
I would definitely just circling back to Darren Collison.
I think that was the guy I'm thinking of here.
Kings, Pacers, that random stint like last year with the Clippers. Remember that?
Clippers, where he like randomly, right? Like I feel like he was the guy that was always getting like moved around, or was always rumored to be getting moved around on teams here. Hornets, Pacers, Mavericks, Clippers, Kings, Pacers, Lakers. That's what he went.
Washington. It's a lot of teams. I would also play Fred VanVleet just for the record, 7,400, especially if all those guys if Jabari and Jay Sean's rolled out and maybe Jalen Green. Fred VanVleet, 7,400 is a really good price. Vassell's fine, coming off a really good game, coming off a couple good games in a row, would obviously facilitate more if there's no Trey Jones. I'm really skeptical that Malcolm Brogdon isn't rolled out. 35 minutes last night. Sat the last few back-to-backs. We haven't seen him play back-to-back all night.
If they're trying to trade him, maybe they show that he can play back-to-backs. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
Obviously, he's been elite again. Like, he's such a good player. It's just hilarious that, the narrative on his initial trade was that his knees were trash.
Right. He's playing 35 minutes a night when he plays. If he doesn't play, like Scoot 57 would, I think, be a very solid pivot. I know Houston's good defensively and not like the best spot overall, but Scoot obviously would have free reign everywhere. Yep. And then you just kind of like dip into the value tier. There's a lot of like potential here, right? Amen Thompson, obviously 4,500. Nick Smith, you and I talked about that last night. You were like, maybe he starts, maybe he doesn't.
What's the Cody Martin's update here?
He's still questionable. Still questionable. Yeah. Nick Richards was upgraded to probable today. So, like, could they start double big if
go PJ
Martin's
at
out?
The 4 or something like that?
Yeah, like they could, and then just Brandon Miller to the 2. They could. Could they start Nick Smith? He's a bucket. If he were to start like 4,100 playing alongside LaMelo is a really good price
Yeah.
point. We saw Sasser blow up last game in a competitive game, 26 minutes, but what does Sasser's minutes look like now with Monty Morris, right? Like Killian Hayes saw 15 minutes. And Sasser saw 26. What does the Monty Morris minutes now factor into Sasser / Killian Hayes?
I feel like
have
you
to
got to take away
assume
from Hayes, probably, right?
Hayes. Yeah. You assume so. But every time we think Killian Hayes minutes are gone, John, Monty Williams just
put them back
here
in.
you go,
Yeah,
Killian. Here's another 30 for you, buddy.
like you didn't draft this guy, Monty. You don't have to play him. You know, like that was the old coach that wasted the pick here.
I think wasn't that like even before
Cody Martin
Casey?
officially in, by the way. So we're
Nick Richards in, Cody Martin in. So like my assumption on a starting lineup for Charlotte would be Ball, Martin,
Miller,
Bridges, Richards, right? That would probably be your assumption on the starting 5. Okay, so that probably knocks Nick Smith
makes Cody Martin a good value play. I can't believe he's only small forward eligible on DraftKings though. He's shooting guard, he's shooting guard, point guard on FanDuel. Not having shooting guard eligibility is a little annoying here, but good value again on Slate. We're just starved for value. Like it's a 4K guy that probably gets 30 minutes tonight.
He is a good value. You know that he's not going to like score a whole bunch, but he is. I mean, he's John Concher.
Dude, I was just about to ask you if you had to pick one, right? John Concher or Cody Martin tonight. Who would you rather play?
He is Concher 2.0. Like it's like the same stat lines. Like this is a Spider-Man meme if I've ever seen one. I might lean Concher if Kennard's out, because then Concher's just gonna play like. I mean, dude, isn't this like you have it on screen? This is John Concher's like. If you just like covered up the face like this, you'd be like, whose stat line is this? Is this John Concher's or is this Cody Martin? And you'd be like, I don't know, both. Yes to both. So
a better game environment for Charlotte, obviously.
For Martin, better game environment for Martin, better eligibility for Concher, probably a little better like ceiling for minutes for Concher if like Kennard's ruled out, because what else do they do? Like what else could they do? Like if Concher's ruled out, Tillman's knee, we don't know if Tillman can even play like 30 minutes tonight because his knees are so bad. Like Memphis is a literal disaster. So I don't know. I'll say Martin because, like you said, the game environment's better, but we're going to see a lot of lineups with both. So buckle up, John. A lot of low floors tonight going into a lot of lineups.
Yes. All right, shooting guard position here. Devin Booker is $9,200 against Dallas. These two teams played. He went for 43 fantasy points in 40 minutes. Again, last game, not his greatest, but had some really good runs before then. Kevin Durant's been doing a lot of the damage. We'll talk about him momentarily. Anthony Edwards, 87. We know, great price tag. You got Rozier here at 74. Then a lot of guys we have already discussed. Chris Middleton is $6,600. Brandon Miller here at 61, one of our favorites for tonight. What's our go-to moves here at shooting guard?
I mean, definitely Jaden Ivey, as we mentioned, at point guard. A lot of the overlap here, position eligibility, but for sure, Brandon Miller has taken a really good leap the last few games. The minutes look really, really good. 29 minutes is not the best in that Minnesota game, but 35 and 35 the 2 games prior. Love to see that. 37 plus fantasy points, 23 plus actual points in 3 straight games. I would definitely take a ownership like shot on Miller over Bogdanovich. I don't know if you've seen Bogdanovich is like one of the highest projected rostered players on Slate. And like I get it because there's no Trey and we're gonna see Bogdanovich start, right? Most likely again, minutes. And he's gonna play mid-30s minutes. He just hasn't like looked really good. So I definitely think that there's a case to be made where if you just want to take a look, like our latest, we'll get the updated ownership.
Mike Conley officially out tonight.
Okay, well, so one, maybe you take a look at Washington plus 11, because I do think Mike Conley makes a difference, like obviously structurally with that team. As we saw, they fell apart without Mike Conley. 2, welcome back into the fold, NAW. 4,200. We're here at shooting guard, small forward. Another value that I think is just going to gravitate to. Was very good scoring the basketball. I think that is like above his like normal 6 for 9, 4 for 6 from 3. Like that's probably a little too good for us. But also had no rebounds. He's averaged 2 per game on like kind of like a limited basis this year. So I think there's some positive regression coming there, even if there is negative regression in other spots. But I like Miller pivot off of Bogdanovic if you don't feel like Bogdanovic is worth 6K price tag just because Trae Young's out. It is obviously an elite matchup for Bogdanovic, so we got to keep that in the back of our mind. If Caris LeVert plays and there's no limit, John, I think he's another contrarian pivot you can go to. We did see him get lifted off the minutes restriction, and then before that game where he gets injured, 43, 40, 37, 34, 33, 35 fantasy points for Caris LeVert. Like, that's the dude who he is. Like, every time he's ever gotten extended anywhere, he has been that player on a fantasy point per minute basis. So, I like all three of those guys. Obviously, if any of the Dallas names are ruled out, Tim Hardaway, Kennard, if he starts, like you could take a shot on Kennard. He's going to do a lot of the ball handling.
You think Dylan Brooks is
Burke,
interesting with no Jabari? Maybe no Jalen Green?
Yeah, I think Dylan Brooks would become very interesting. Indeed, there's a lot of shot attempts for Dylan Brooks. He is not afraid. Never been a guy to be afraid to shoot the basketball. It's just he's on a team that runs through Ben Vliet, Şengün, Jabari.
Yeah, we said this before. He was Marcus Smart. Like Memphis replaced Marcus Smart with Marcus Smart here. Dylan Brooks always a guy that thinks more highly of himself than what he probably should. No offense to Marcus Smart, who was a defensive player of the year at one point, but Dylan Brooks thinks he's that guy as well. Took 22 shots when he had to because they didn't have anybody else really active against Boston. Not afraid to fire, and if they're down Jalen Green, down Jabari Smith, like he could go out there and give himself 15 shot attempts here tonight.
Agreed. And if Dylan Brooks got 15 shot attempts, I'd have a lot of interest.
Yep. Agreed. We'll have to see a starting lineup for that game. It doesn't come out till 8 o'clock. So, because we like Cam Whitmore, Eamon Thompson, and the like there. Anybody else here at shooting guard for you?
Just the value guys we've already talked about. I think NAW is going to become one of the highest rostered players of the slate. Plug and play. It's Washington. He's going to start, play 30 minutes. I think that's kind of a value you play and you move on. Shooting guard, small forward eligibility as well. Sure. So that would probably be the only other name that we really haven't gotten down.
Small forward, we do have buckets here at 81. I do like the price tag. I just don't really know what to expect with that rotation in the matchup. Obviously, lowest game total on the board. Memphis, nobody playing for them, so tough to judge. You got OKC on the second leg of a back-to-back here. Jalen Williams played 32 minutes. 9 of 20 shooting the other night, not great, but still at 19 actual and 35 fantasy points at a good price point. 35 fantasy points, it's still 5x at 7K. Are you worried about the back-to-back here for him, or are we still systems go at 7K for Jalen Williams?
I'm not. We saw them kind of limit his first half minutes last night. He played 12, and then he played 20 of 24 minutes in the second half when Oklahoma City needed to win the game. And then we saw him hit a game winner to win the game. I think this is all systems go. We saw him play 33 minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back just last week in a game that he lost out a couple minutes to at the end against the Clippers when it was out of their control. Only played 19 minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back 2 weeks ago because it was Portland. But 35 minutes on a back-to-back against Atlanta earlier in January. 41 fantasy points in that game. Love the 7K price tag. He's a mid to high 7K player at this rate, so we're still getting a discount. And this is one of the few times I think we're ever going to see San Antonio a single point spread against a team this good. Like, not to say that means that they're going to keep the game competitive, because I think if they're without Trey Jones, it's a lot harder to do, just given what he's provided for them, like an actual point guard. Instead of them trying to use Jeremy Sohan as a point guard. So I think that would be a big ding and possibly hurt the San Antonio chances to keep it competitive. But if they do, Jalen Williams is such a good play.
Agreed. Again, we talked at Middleton here already. Maybe Grant gets a little bit more of a bump here if Portland is able to stay competitive against Houston, not having Jabari Smith kind of on the other side of him for that one. Vince Williams, again, really tough matchup, but they don't really have anybody else to play. rain or shine, I think you're getting 30 plus minutes out of Vince Williams here. Puts the hard hat on, grabs the lunch pail, goes to work.
Dude, he just does, like they really just don't have their injury report looks like it should be a active NBA roster. Like how long and like it's just so sad what's happened to Memphis this year. It's been just a chalk it up as an L and move on to 2024.
Next year they're going to add a
right?
top 3 pick to John Morant and Desmond Bain
Dude.
and Jaren Jackson, right? So
Yep, and possibly
Marcus Smart will be
depending
there,
on like and depending on like what their window is, like flip that pick, for something worth, Vince Williams, the lunch pail is still going to be there. So yeah, 6,500 for Vince is a solid price.
Are you touching any of these Golden State guys? We didn't talk about Steph, obviously. Clay's here at 63. What are your thoughts?
I don't have much interest other than Steph. I'm a little like, I understand the spot is very good against Atlanta. They're a bad defensive team. I just don't know what to make of this whole situation. Like they're coming off obviously the tragedy that happened. They are already kind of in flux where everyone's available outside of Steph Curry. We don't know what Draymond's minutes are going to look like in his second game back after not playing for 9 days. What does that do to the front court? We know how they handle everything else. Like Pajemski's back tonight. We just saw that he's available. So what does his minutes look like cutting in? Does he cut into Clay? Does he cut into Wiggins? Does Wiggins continue to get 30 minutes? If Clay doesn't shoot well, does he play 30 minutes? Like if Clay shoots well, he plays a bunch of minutes, but you don't know if he's going to shoot well because it's been so it's just such an unsettling feeling. Like you can get to these guys in tournaments because it's a really good spot. I just don't have a good feel for it, truthfully, because I don't know how anyone can like have this like definitive. Sure, Clay has been in infinite good matchups this year and has had flop after flop because the shot's not falling. And then we get this random 3-game stretch where you're like, oh, is Clay back? And then he does it again, right? And then Wiggins, every other game, it's like, oh, great game, bad game. And then Kuminga, great games. Finally, Steve Kerr is gonna, gonna play him, and then he doesn't. And then they have this obvious massive weight on top of them, right? That like their assistant coach, the death that they're dealing with, their first game back is at home. Like there's obvious like
going to be moment of silence. There's going to be maybe
dude, it's just a very hard situation to read into, and there may be something in the air. Like again, I talked to you about this on the show. Like depending on like the spiritual beliefs that you have and what you think like could be in the building tonight with the Warriors, you might have a different feeling than I do, right? We have no idea how this is going to play out. What I do know is it's a good matchup for both teams. I'm almost surprised to see the total just 234.5 when I was looking at that earlier, considering how bad
I think no Trae Young has a lot to do with that. I
do too. The Kings scored 122 points on them. They only scored 107. Like I understand that. I don't disagree, but everything says like, yeah, sure, Golden State could go crazy tonight. Everything says like, but I'm just very iffy on Golden State the whole. Like you could play them in tournaments if you want. Like Clay is a good price. Like they're good prices, but I don't know.
Working our way down the list here. Some guys obviously we've discussed. There is Keldon here at $5,800 if they are down a rotation guy. Keldon was playing 28 minutes in the two of the 29-28 here. Only played 21 against Philly, but if there is no Trey Jones, maybe Keldon Johnson gets some additional run. I know you're not favoring that. You have Bojan here at 58. We talked THJ already. Burks is $5,400, and some of these guys we've discussed already. Strus, Bay, Brooks, Cody Martin, even. Any number 1 or 2 picks down here for you?
You won't get this reference, Sean, but Drake Hand to Bojan, and
I've seen the memes.
Keldon Johnson.
I've seen the memes.
Okay. I'm glad you know that Drake's a country singer. I'm not going to play either of those guys. I would play some of the value, like Alec Burks. I do think Alec Burks kind of benefits from Cade not being around. Just more minutes to go around, more minutes for Jaden Ivey on the ball as opposed to him playing off the ball with Cade. Sure. So I do like the Alec Burks 5,400 price tag. Sadiq, I've talked to you on the pod. He has literally been like the worst shooter in the NBA over the last week or two. It's hard to imagine he's actually this bad because he's never been this bad. But I also don't want to play him if he's going to keep being this bad. I mean, he has just been flat out terrible. The price is great. The minutes have still been there for Sadiq. And again, good matchup for him. So if you want to play him, I would. That's fine. We talked about Strus. Very good GPP play that nobody will get to if Karis LeVert's ruled out. Right on cue, Prime with the same sentiments. Whitmore obviously figures to start. I know that last start against Boston wasn't great. Hey, guess what? Boston's really good.
Yeah.
So
the 27 minutes back-to-back games is what we like to see.
Yeah, the minutes are the more the crucial part of that equation. So I would comfortably get back to Cam Whitmore if there's no Jabari Smith and Jayshawn Tate. I think no Tate and Smith would even bolster those minutes. Yeah, solidify those minutes even more. So
Uncle Jeff steps in and plays.
Yeah, can't wait. Yeah, can't wait for that.
Just to hit our guy Ernest here with some props. I know James did the underdog sleeper articles here tonight. Those are out on Fantasy Farm. You can check them out. For me, I like Brandon Miller over 16.5 points, Devin Vassell over 4.5 assists, and Jalen Duran over 11.5 rebounds. Grande, what are you in on there today?
So I went DeJounte Murray more than 5.5 first quarter points tonight. And I went Jared Allen more than 11.5 rebounds.
I like it. So a couple of props for all you guys here tonight. You can check those out. Go to fantasyfarm.com. Find the articles out there. Grande did them today. I've done them the last couple of days. You follow us on Twitter. 4-0 the last 2 days over on RT Sports. Props are all the same across wherever you go. It just all depends on where you want to play. So you can check out those picks over there as well. Let's see. We touched upon it. Obviously, NAW. Roddy's getting some love. I like Georges Niang at 4K. What are your thoughts when we get like deep down here?
I mean, I expect Roddy to play a lot. We just saw this the other day. No Tillman against the Bulls. They get blown out. I was looking at the popcorn machine. He backed up Santi Aldama, who was starting at center in that game. So do we have relevant news?
No, just Hayward out. Or Hayward Highsmith is in. Sorry.
Hayward Highsmith in. I think Roddy is their backup center today. I know they called up I thought they called up someone from the G League. I'm thinking of someone else. They wasn't them. They don't have anyone else. So David Roddy operated as the backup center behind Santi Aldama the other day when Tillman sat. Played 32 minutes, closed in the blowout. Have to assume, we saw the line movement in Miami's favor. In Miami, Memphis reeling potentially without Luke Kennard. There's a blowout in the air tonight. It's not like the best price tag for David Roddy, considering like there's not like this massive ceiling. But if he anywhere near 30 minutes, he'd be like one of the only guys at this price tag that you can confidently say that like is playing close to or 30 minutes, right? So I do have some mild interest in some of these cheaper Grizzlies just because they just don't have a choice but to play him.
Could start Champagne here tonight.
I mean, he's going to continue to start.
Yeah.
He's been it's not that he's not starting. It's just like,
does he get more minutes without Trey Jones?
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
I
don't like
Georges Niang here.
Yeah, and Yang, yeah, for sure.
I'm a Niang fan though, so that's my own thing here. Power forward position here. Giannis, Durant, Wembayama. It's loaded. Jaren Jackson, Towns. You really can't go wrong, I don't think, with the top group here.
To your Niang point, John, just quickly, I don't mean to like.
Sure.
It's kind of why I like Jared Allen, and we'll get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, no Tristan Thompson.
Oh, true. No Tristan Thompson.
They don't like Damian Jones was just completely axed in the rotation. Like whether or not you think Damian Jones is like instantly, I'm not so sure Damian Jones just is their backup center, right? Like I know they need size versus Milwaukee. Georges Niang's a big boy. Like, he is a big boy. And they can also just go Dean Wade, small ball center type situation. So we'll see what their situation looks like. But no, Tristan Thompson, I think, is a big deal and benefits because he has been their direct backup at center, playing double-digit minutes every night. So I think Niang figures to benefit from that as well. Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer on any of those top guys. Really hard not to look at the Wemby price. Really hard not to look at the fact that game's a single-digit spread, and that Wemby's now has a 27-minute ceiling that he's now played 28 minutes in back-to-back games. Really just impossible not to take note.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's unfortunate that over in FanDuel he's not available on the slate. Being they took the 9:30 and 10:30 game or 10 o'clock games off because you are missing out on some nice production potential for him here. Faced some tough matchups lately. Boston, Atlanta, Philadelphia has come out and really performed in those spots. Cleveland, even Milwaukee. So good opponents, bad opponents, doesn't matter. He's kind of being the guy we all expected him to be. So for sure in. KD, though, I mean, dude, this is the KD we're gonna get. I mean, we say this about a lot of guys. Kevin Durant, in prime Kevin Durant form, is a 10K plus player. He's $9,300. He's given us 40 actual back-to-back games. Certainly capable of doing it. Didn't have the greatest first game against Dallas here, but current form, who's to say he can't keep it going?
Nobody's going to say it. We just need him to stay healthy if he's going to play 40 plus minutes a night, right? I think that's the ultimate. As long as he's playing 40 plus minutes a night, there is a massive ceiling on Kevin Durant on a night-to-night basis. So
agreed.
Absolutely can get there.
Rob, we're getting to center, but since you're popping in, I'll answer that for you. I'm going Jalen Duran here tonight over Yusuf Nurkic.
Same.
That's where I'm living. Again, can't deny any of these top three. Go there if you want. Towns at 81, Triple J 82. I really like Bridges. He was a cover of the show this morning. I don't know if that's changed for you at all with Richards back or anything, but I think this is a really big spot for Miles Bridges tonight.
I mean, I think there's probably less of a rebound ceiling for Bridges because Richards is clearly a better rebounder than PJ Washington is. But that doesn't mean there's not room for both guys to feast on the glass. Bridges, it's obviously a really good spot against Detroit, 29th ranked defense in the NBA during the month of January, big pace-up spot. So no problem getting to Bridges. I'm surprised to not see Karl-Anthony Towns get as much ownership. I mean, 8% upon last update is interesting because we're running it back with the same exact team as we just did, right? Now, I'm not sitting here suggesting Karl-Anthony Towns is going to score 60 again with the same exact team with no Mike Conley, but I am suggesting that he's 8% coming off 62 actual points. So that is obviously worth noting. 8% owned, coming off 62.
Mm-hmm.
Recency bias can sometimes drive up a player's ownership. It's a pretty good spot again.
It is.
It's Washington's a very bad team. I know Chris Finch, the head coach, had some interesting comments after the game, but I can't see a scenario where he's just Edwards is obviously going to take more shots, and Karl-Anthony Towns is going to take 35 shots. Who's to say Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't hit 7 threes tonight, taking 20 shots, like a normal game or something along those lines? I'm just saying, it's weird to see him come off 62 actual and he's only getting 8%.
Well, update here. Kyrie Irving is not going through his pregame warmups at his usual time. Will update.
It is so sick that we have that at our disposal. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see if Kyrie. Listen, no one's ever said Kyrie Irving plays through injuries. So no one's ever put that bullet point on his pros list. So there's that if that fingernail is sore today. There's a chance that he sits out. So you could have a solo Luka Doncic tonight. So.
John, here's from the Magic beat writer. Here's the beat writer. Kyrie Irving, who is questionable to play tonight against the Phoenix Suns, hasn't taken the floor for his pregame workout. He typically doesn't play when he doesn't work out 3 to 3.5 hours before tip-off at American Airlines Center. Stay tuned for updates.
There you go. So that would throw THJ right back into the mix like we talked about. Obviously, Luka Doncic by himself becomes a very appealing play here. Do they even hang with Phoenix? I guess is also a question.
7 straight for Phoenix.
Right.
7 straight, yeah.
So we'll have to keep that one up there. Prime popping in. Jalen Johnson ownership seems a bit low. I mean, we are obviously Jalen Johnson guys here. Grande champions, the Jalen Johnson fan club in this room. Some not the greatest game against Sacramento.
Yeah.
You know, okay performances, 2 of the last 3. Obviously had a good stretch here a little while back. You know, does no Trae Young impact this at all? Maybe from a facilitation standpoint. I mean, Trae Young's a guy that gets 10, 11, 12 assists a game.
They have a good rapport too, him and Trae Young. That was very evident. That's why I've said it from the beginning. Like, you move on from everybody but Trae Young and Jalen Johnson because they just work in tandem so well. I mean, there's a obvious ceiling for Jalen Johnson. He's over a fantasy point per minute without Trae Young and DeAndre Hunter this year. But that's all. It's not like this massive bump for Jalen Johnson in any capacity. He just has a ceiling. Look, he shot 4 of 18 from the floor last game. So you have to like the 18 shots. The minutes are great. The peripheral stats continue to be there for Jalen Johnson. So no problem if you want to get there. Great spot, fast environment against a bad defense. So,
where else we going when it comes to the power forward here?
I mean, I liked Jabari Smith at 59. If DeAndre Ayton and Brogdon were be ruled out, which I still think is on the table, Jabari Walker, 5,900, coming off a double-double from yesterday. 14 points, 13 rebounds, double-doubles in 2 of his last 3 games now in the starting lineup. I wouldn't mind getting to Jabari Walker if there's guys ruled out. TBD on PJ if he's not starting, probably can't get there. I still think there may be a chance he starts over Richards, but I think they need the Richards play against Jalen Duren.
Yeah.
And then it's just a bunch of guys we've kind of talked about. I would say the first guy in the value tier that we have in is Onyeka Ngankwu. Seems like a spot we'd get extended run for Ngankwu. Sure. It's kind of a trend, right? Athletic centers that we see opposing him, we see Ngankwu extended because you can't play Clint Capella against Domantas Sabonis.
Right.
That's not fair to Capella. Ngankwu even fouled out in the 29 minutes he played against Sacramento in that game. So Ngankwu is getting some ownership love. He's fine at 4,600. He hasn't shown the ceiling that he has earlier in the year. Kyle Anderson's going to probably pick up some ownership tonight. We saw him kind of play backup point guard, 8 assists in that game, 22 minutes. That's the problem, right? Conley out, only sees a couple minutes extra. That's the problem getting to Kyle Anderson.
He needs McDaniels to be.
He does. Yes, he does. Or get in foul trouble, right? One of those 2 things to happen. So we're going to see Kyle Anderson 4,100 pick up ownership like he was last slate. I think GG Jackson is not a bad value option because I think this game's going to blow out. They just don't have front court options. He was a direct sub for Jaren Jackson for the last couple of games and played alongside him a little bit. We could see him play like he did in that Golden State Knicks game, upper 20s minutes, with just how depleted they are. And we obviously saw he has a ceiling in that instance.
Daz, we're moving on over to center here. Just some quick thoughts on value. Obviously, we like Onyeka Ngankwu here tonight. I like Naz Reid as well. In this spot, in case there's a blowout, he might get some run. I know that hasn't always been the case, but there's some potential for him there. Bagley could see some run if Gafford gets in foul trouble tonight, which, certainly is a possibility with Daniel Gafford. I think the safest value plays at center are going to be Nick Richards and Xavier Tillman for DraftKings here tonight. I forget if you play over on FanDuel. On FanDuel, dude, there is no value at center. I think it's just Nick Richards. There's everybody's 6K or above over on FanDuel. So, you're probably looking at Nick Richards tonight for your safest value play. And Tillman, they just have to play minutes. They don't have anybody else at center. So, he's $5,400. So looking at some value, certainly places to go. Love Jalen Duren at $6,800, as James and I have talked a lot about this evening. I think it's a good spot, even with Nick Richards on the floor. At $6,800 there. Jared Allen, working our way backwards. Jared Allen, $7,700, one of our favorite centers there as well. If you wanted to get the Bam or Şengün's the highest roster play of the slate right now. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess it's like not that surprising when you like think about the matchup is just as good as it gets, and he's also kind of been as good as it gets. Like 57, 69 fantasy points in back-to-back games. He's been at 44 or more in all but one of his last like 10 games. There's just a crazy ceiling floor combination. Like even in blowouts, he's had a really good run. So I'm using Şengün like as a cash staple. And if you want to pivot off someone in like tournaments, I think Jared Allen is like the perfect option for that because I've talked about it already once, but when there's no Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and then you take off Karis LeVert, which obviously we don't know. It's an 8 p.m. game. We won't know most likely if Karis LeVert's going to play or not. Jared Allen, John, is a 1.5 fantasy point per minute player. That is so elite for a player that's under 8K. Like 1.5 fantasy points per minute are like players that are who? Like Jokic is 1.6 with Jamal Murray this year. I think Halliburton's like 1.6 fantasy points per minute this year. Like, and you're getting this guy for 7,700, and you look at the matchup that he has had or the meetings he has had against Milwaukee this year. 44 fantasy points, 21-point double-double in 26 minutes. The first game he played 40 minutes and had 30, 12, and 6 for 59 fantasy points. And now there's the Tristan Thompson caveat. How many minutes does Jared Allen play? Like Jared Allen's going to play 40 minutes if he can, right? Like if this is a competitive game, which all signs point to it being, I think that Jared Allen's playing 40 minutes and because they need him. They like, look at the front court from Milwaukee. There's just just relentless. Like you need a big body or two at all times on the floor. They don't have to because Mobley's out, but they have Jared Allen, who I think they're going to push to the limit. I love 7,700 Jared Allen. If Karis LeVert's out, that is the first person I'm plugging tonight to pair with hopefully Luka Doncic. Without Kyrie.
Des wants to know our thoughts on Dua Brief here. Said he's been balling even with Ayton. What are your thoughts on Dua Brief here tonight? Does Ayton got to be out for you to play him here, or do you think he's fine as that backup center where okay it's sometimes playing for 20 minutes?
I think it's Ayton contingent. I'm still I'm holding out that Ayton's gonna get ruled out. I still think there's a chance that Portland doesn't play a couple guys here. But I would probably skip on Reith if there's no or if DeAndre Ayton's ruled in.
Sure. Let's build, my friend. It's been an interesting slate so far, but we do have the Conley news, so I guess we plug in NAW here.
Yep.
Throw him in at shooting guard.
Cody Martin,
I guess. Yeah. At small forward. I'll plug Luka, man. Doesn't seem I like him anyways, and if there's no Kyrie, I mean,
agreed.
Feels pretty good. Let's see. Where else do we want? Strus regardless, right? If LeVert or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good price and it's a competitive game, so I'm good on Strus.
Power forward position. Go Wemby here.
Yep. It's all going to depend on what we want to do at center. If we're you can play Wemby at center as well.
I was thinking doing Duran.
Okay.
Forward.
I mean, in this lineup, we're not playing DeJounte. Does that bother you?
I guess so. I guess that's a difference maker. If we did DeJounte here, what does that give us to move around?
It would have to be. We'd have to make some
move off Luka to go ball.
Yeah, or you go off Wemby. It's pretty much the two options. Or you go back to Luka, but I'm also okay just playing LaMelo.
Something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Good ball. NAW, Cody Martin, Jalen Williams, Jalen Duran. Max Strus, Cam Whitmore, and DeJounte Murray. As an example lineup for everybody here this evening. Playbook is out. Obviously, all news and updates will be put into that playbook as well. James and I are live every day, 5 o'clock Eastern time here. We also do the pre-show. We record that the night before, so it's out nice and late or early, depending on your watching preferences. Usually it's live by like 11 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern time. Get you all ready for tomorrow's slate. I think we get 5 games tomorrow for Thursday. Usually we have smaller slates on Thursdays, but I think tomorrow's actually a pretty decent size Thursday slate. So be on the lookout for that. If you have any questions, find us on Twitter. Get in the Discord. James and I will be around. We'll talk to you then. Good luck, everybody, tonight.